Right, it's 7 o'clock. Let's start. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So I have no changes on the agenda. Would someone like to make that motion?
I'll move we approve the agenda.
I'll second that.
All right, so motion made by Tim, second by John. All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions? Noes? Motion passes. Has everyone reviewed the meeting from October 8th?
I'll make a motion, we approve those minutes as written.
Okay, I found no changes in there as well.
Second that.
All right, John first, Tim second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion passes. Communication and correspondence. I just have a couple things that have come up. I received an email yesterday that we have been approved by DEEP for the solar project that's been hanging for at least a year and a half or so. So DEEP finally got around to it and approved it. Got an email about an hour ago from Alan Sabins from the group that is coordinating that project. He says based on Green Skies, their schedule and Eversource actually completing what they're supposed to do first quarter of 26, he anticipates the project should be done by the end of calendar year 2026. So it's still a lot can happen between now and then, but that looks good. It's been a while. I think it might have been signed first back in 2022. So this might be almost 3 years at the beginning of the project. So really happy to see that. I've gotten a number of emails and calls with regards to traffic. I got a call from Jeff or an email from Jeff Burgess, who was concerned about traffic on Main Street and enforcement. He wanted me to bring that up tonight. He's concerned about traffic, especially truck traffic on Main Street and past the schools. I told him that we are talking to DOT about things that we can do to kind of change what we're doing on Main Street, as well as other things we can do to mitigate it. I talked to Scott about more traffic stops on Main Street for speeding and other violations to make sure we slow people down. We've moved the traffic sign there, the speed sign, so that's making people more aware of that as well. So I'm trying to pursue as much as we can to make sure that we slow that traffic, not only there, but also other locations in town that are being noted. So another message from Allison Shaw, who also is looking at safety on Cross and Freestone. She's concerned about traffic there, people blowing through stop signs. Again, I have a dozen of these. I'm not going to read them all, just one or two, but people are paying attention to safety. People are paying attention to what's going on out there. I think that's good. I encourage that if you have an area, you have a concern. Now, we cannot put stop signs everywhere. We cannot, there's certain things that we can't do on state roads as well as local roads, but we are looking at it, and I want everyone to bring to our attention if they do find an issue that they find dangerous or unsafe. We want to try to correct that as much as we can. And I did have one gentleman that emailed me a couple days ago and was asking about giving a discount to veterans or to firefighters at our town facility for a discount. So that one, he said Portwood Dump. I didn't want to call it that, but he's looking for anything we do at the transfer station to maybe give a discount. I'm open to that, but if you open the door for one, you open it to a number of people. So I'm going to put that up until the next board is sat. But he did want it discussed and mentioned in the meeting tonight. Speaking of speed, we've got two additional speed signs that we brought into the town. One is being put up. We have a second one that we're looking to put up on Route 17 near where the fatality was. I'm coordinating with DEEP right now, just as a reminder. So we'll try to put that sign there and just remind people about the speed in a place where we've had multiple accidents. So it's not much, but it's something. So we're continuing to try to do that. And that is all I have for correspondence.
Mike, I just have one quick thing or
Please.
two quick things. Under new business, number 8, action item A and D, I'm going to be abstaining myself from these.
Okay.
The bid waiver is the company I work for on A, and D is the approval of the minutes for or the meeting dates for calendar year 2026. I won't be on the board anymore, so I just don't feel like I should be judging other people's fate.
Completely understand.
So those two I'll be abstaining from.
All right, Michael, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. So, all right, any public comments? a public comment. This might be a lot quicker than your meeting last night, Charles. We'll work on it. All right, old business, monthly report committee on solidarity. Do we have someone online?
Hey, Mike, it's Glenn. I'm here.
Hey, how are you? All right, you are on. Give us the update.
Okay, first of all, I would like to, of course, thank the board for your continued support, especially when it comes to working with us on the student representatives. It's just been a great pleasure to have their young blood and ideas helping us out, come up with new ways to work together with the town. And I think it's also great just to have the youth of Portland, seeing how stuff works within the town. So thanks for your work on that. As for solidarity business, we attended the Portland Fair and we had a great time at our table, talking to the community, handing out resources, and just getting some feedback from the members of our community and visiting neighbors as well. The Juneteenth planning is continuing. They are zeroing in on a date. It's not set in stone yet, so I'm not going to say anything yet, but by our next meeting, you guys should know the date for Juneteenth next year celebration. And I just want to remind everyone that the Voices of Portland book is still at the library to be taken out, checked out, as well as a copy at the Historic Society to go and view. That bound book is a great resource, and everyone worked really hard on it, and it's just a great way to share some of Portland's history. And we're going to continue to work to bring more Voices of Portland out to the community as well. So that's all we have going on.
Glenn, I appreciate that. I appreciate all the work that you guys do. And that was a great event. That truly was.
Good, good. And before I go, lastly, if anyone wants to come and join our meetings, they're the second Tuesday every month at the Senior Center. And we're happy to have any visitors or guests help us out, give their input, or even join. So, yeah.
Very nice. All right.
All
Thanks,
right.
Glenn.
Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. All right. Do we have any appointments or reappointments of boards or commissions? I don't believe we had. All right. Thank you very much. All right. Under new business, just have a few things. First thing that we have is a bid waiver for Environmental Systems Corporation for the devices we need for the boilers that we have. So we have found Environmental Systems Corporation is the one that can do it the best. We have confidence in their ability to do that. We've already have the money, the budget's already been set aside for this in Fund 8. We just need someone to read the motion. If anyone doesn't.
Yeah, and my understanding, Mike, is that this money came in within the budget.
Yes.
And I believe that Bob was able to be, pretty efficient with this.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
All right, I'll be happy to read it. All right, I'll make a motion that we adopt the resolution titled Request for Waiver of Bid Requirements, Environmental Systems Corporation dated October 22nd, 2025. Whereas the Town of Portland Board of Education purchased 2 new Well-McLean 15-section boilers with power flame burners and Honeywell BACnet communication cards from Sid Harvey Industries, Inc., to be installed at Brownstone Intermediate School. And whereas the Board of Education has received a quote from Environmental Systems Corporation to purchase and install new Tritium Niagara Honeywell supervisory controls to operate the new boilers. And whereas the installation of the new controls requires the coordination of engineering, project management, programming, graphics, testing, and training while incorporating some existing equipment. And whereas a quote for furnishing and installing the new controls required hardware and software has come in at approximately $49,550 from Environmental Systems Corporation. And whereas Environmental Systems Corporation, who is the Board of Education's current contractor that provides annual maintenance, installation, and repair of our school district's HVAC controls, is needed to complete the necessary installation work, as they have knowledge and expertise with regard to the school district's HVAC control systems. Now therefore be it resolved that in the best interest of the town, pursuant to section 12087 of the Portland Charter, the Portland Board of Selectmen hereby waives the bidding requirements of section 1208 of the Portland Charter as it pertains to utilizing Environmental Services Corporation as the vendor to furnish and install the new Tritium Niagara Honeywell supervisory controls at Brownstone Intermediate School. Resolved that the Board of Selectmen authorize the first selectman, Michael Pelton, to act on behalf of the town of Portland to enter into any agreements related to these improvements. I'll second that.
All right. So Jim made it, Tim seconded it. Any discussion?
Do we know when these are being installed?
They should be done in 3 to 4 months is the last I've gotten, but I'll confirm with Bob. You still have to put the boilers in first. Actually, Michael, you work with them, don't you?
Yeah, I'm not saying.
He's
anything.
abstaining.
You could still, do you know the answer?
Dr. Burton's here, you could.
Yeah.
Big one.
I was freaking 3 to 4 months.
Right.
I was hoping by the end of the year at this.
I was gonna say, we were told the end of November. and he said
End of November,
boilers.
okay. Okay.
Before snow flies was the goal, right?
Yeah.
The goal,
That
okay.
was the, yes,
Okay, good.
absolutely.
It's quicker than the last I heard. So that's great. So we're gonna hold it 3 or 4 weeks, Mike.
Do my best.
There you go. All right, Mike, I know you can't vote, but all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
All right. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Next one, I want to preface this with a couple things. There's been a great deal of time, effort, and money put into looking at the schools and figuring out what we're going to do. And with it, are going to come some costs that we need to anticipate between now and when we can get this put onto a referendum, hopefully in the springtime. We've looked at the costs, we've estimated what they are, and in order that we think to safely do this, we need to apply at least another $85,000 into the fund that's going to be dedicated to this to get us over the finish line, to get it up there for the spring referendum. That's what's anticipated right now. So what I'm asking for tonight is to add some money to the school construction fund. What that's going to, and we're not going to have all the costs to it right now, but we do know that Friar Architecture is about 39,000. We do know that the demographic study is about 2,100. There is additional funding that will be financial advisor, perhaps bond and legal counsel, educational material, printed material, et cetera, to get this over the line. But because so much effort's been put into this, the town, we want to put the funds necessary to get this thing done right, because ultimately it's going to be the voters that decide what to do with this. We'll present the case for it. There'll be others that will present the case not to do it or do something else, but I think ultimately it gets down to the voters of Portland to decide what we want to do, and we want to do it right. So the money's been thought of and looked at closely. We've conferred with Dr. Britton and Board of Ed. Tom and I have looked at the numbers across the board, and that is a safe number right now. Now, of course, other things can come up, other things can happen. We don't know, there's enough unknowns, but this is something that we feel comfortable doing, and we have the funds available. I think, Bobby, you reached out to check with Tom in terms of whether we have the funds available. We do. But I think this is something important. And we will be talking about this obviously right after this as well. But that's kind of a background on it. Does anyone have any questions?
So you need a motion to approve this, and then this will then go to a public hearing.
Yes. And we'll be setting that up right after that, correct? So,
I'm willing to read it if you want. Any
well,
questions?
I have a question before it's read. Is there any funding in the school budget to pay for part of this, or is this all going to fall on the town?
this is going to fall on the town for a couple reasons. One, it's still ultimately our buildings, and we're kind of helping football this forward. Because it's going to come back to us, whoever's on this board in another 3 or 4 weeks, we're going to have to take this and run with it and decide what we want to do and how we want to do it. So it's something that we'll be controlling. Also, budget wise, the budget that Charles and them have at that end, that's their fiscal budget. They hadn't planned on all of this expenses. They have other, that's their working budget going forward. So Tom feels comfortable with this. I feel comfortable based on it's going to be something that we're going to have to do, and we're going to have to push this forward, and it's our buildings ultimately. So that's the rationale behind this. We had talked weeks ago about perhaps doing a split on some of these, but because this is a bigger project and demands a great deal of effort from us going forward, once we start talking about this, I felt it was something that makes the most sense.
Well, I think to see that they have basically $2,300 in that fund 24, and not more than a couple months ago, they had a surplus of nearly $250,000. Why wasn't any of that appropriated to that fund if they knew this was coming down the pipe? Like, at least due to Town of Solid, we've been bailing them out with the general fund on many a project. It's like, if you got some budgetary issues here, which it seems like they did. I don't understand why they didn't take any of that money that they had in a surplus and put it in this fund.
Yeah.
Or at least meet the town halfway instead of us always taking from the general fund to help the school budget out again.
If we're commenting still, I would just add in that at one of the Board of Ed meetings, Charles did suggest that they could contribute towards the costs. And I don't know, I don't think there was a vote taken on that, but I know I had a conversation with Michael as well and said, gee, I thought the board, superintendent said they could help. And I know, as Michael just explained, Tom Robinson felt strongly that this is a sack that the town needs to carry because of the nature of the expense. And, I'm willing to take that on face value, is my thought.
Yeah, and as Tom had explained also, I mean, their budget's their operating budget going forward, whereas we have the discretionary money in our fund balance to make it happen. So it's rare that Tom is this comfortable assuming the full amount of
Right.
that, as everyone here knows. And I trust his judgment on this one.
I just would like to see them meet us halfway or something. Again, the budget year that we had to supply them nearly $300 and something thousand to bail them out because of under budgeting that year. And then the track, we did another $500,000, whatever it was. It just seems like it's one thing after another. At least it would show a little good faith. It would help us out with something. That's what I'm just saying, like, meet us halfway.
Yeah, I will tell you that this money tonight, compared to the money that's going to be spent if this is successful, if it is something that does, there will be other opportunities going forward that the Board of Ed will probably have an opportunity to contribute funding and do something as this project unfolds. So to your point, Mike, I understand that. I think there'll be plenty of opportunities for them to be able to contribute. But at least for this to get it started, and our whole goal for this board is to get it to the starting line, is get it to referendum. And if we can get it to there, then we'll work on it. And that'll be really the next board's decision to make. And whoever's on here, we'll have to kind of feel that through. And we have a lot of work ahead of us to do, but good point. Your point well taken. All right, is someone to go and read this?
Yeah, I don't mind.
Oh,
Rick, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, I was kind of in Mike Hernandez camp. So I guess we're gonna take this money from our fund balance, is
yes,
that correct?
yes.
And then so what is our fund balance? How does what or even a percentage, like what is this gonna do to our fund balance? Do we have a big fund balance, or is this just coming out at 100,000 we usually put into contingency?
This comes out from our fund balance. We're well funded to be able to handle this per Tom.
Okay, so this is coming out of
specific-
basically the town's savings.
No, we have our town fund for this is not the savings account, but it is the
Okay.
fund that's, I can assure you of that.
Yeah, and I think one of the questions, I guess, and I know the answer, but I think it would be good to clarify it, is that we have some policies that we have in place in terms of the fund balance and how that relates to a percentage of our operating, so that having that reserve in there helps us with our bond rating,
Right.
which ultimately saves us money. So I guess one of the most important questions, just to make sure, is that everyone would have, is that by taking this money out, we still have enough money in there that meets that policy, right?
100% correct.
Well, well put, Jim. Thank you. That's kind of what I was getting at.
Mhm.
Right,
Yes.
yeah, we're still within where we need to be.
And I know, I think you were sent the numbers, at least the fund balance from last year, right? So did you feel comfortable with that number? I don't want to share the specific one because it's, I guess, private town, but there was sufficient funds in there for Tom and certainly me. You saw the number as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's
Okay,
just funny
I'll
that
trust your judgment. 'cause I
it's a
didn't
town
see the
fund and
numbers.
it's always talked about when nobody ever knows what's on.
Right. But
Right.
you saw the
It's-
number. And actually, everyone on this board should have received that. I forwarded that to everybody. So,
Yeah, I saw it.
all right.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, so I'd make
okay.
a motion, resolution, Board of Selectmen, Town of Portland, Connecticut, October 22nd, 2025. School Construction Fund supplemental appropriation from general fund fund balance. Whereas the town of Portland continues to attempt to move forward school construction projects, and whereas funds are needed for, but are not limited to, architectural fees, consulting fees for demographic studies, financial advisors, and attorney fees such as bond counsel. And whereas only $2,366 remains in Fund 24, School Construction Fund, and expected needed costs will exceed the $2,366. And whereas at least an additional $85,000 would be needed to keep the school construction effort moving forward and would need to be allocated from the general fund balance. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Board of Selectmen hereby approves a supplemental appropriation in line item number 01-093-000-90006, transfer out other in the amount of $85,000 from the general fund balance, and be it further resolved that the Board of Selectmen hereby approves a total supplemental appropriation in line item number 01-093-000-90006, transfer out other in the amount of $85,000 to be transferred to Fund 24, School Construction Fund, to be used to continue to move school construction project toward referendum, and any remaining unexpended funds to be used on any needed school construction project. Be it further resolved that pursuant to section 1303.3 of the Portland Town Charter, this requires a public hearing prior to Board of Selectmen approval. And pursuant to section 503G is subject to approval at a special town meeting.
All right,
I'll second.
all right. Second over there. Any further discussion?
I'll just say, having sat on that committee, we've spoken many times, and we'll talk about the plan tonight. But the fact is that I've been speaking about transparency and education about this project for 2 years. The education still has to occur, but we have to be able to educate people and explain to them what the layout is going to look like, how it's going to impact our bond rating, how it's going to impact our taxes. And that information, as I understand it, is coming from what we're allocating. So no matter how you slice it, you can't bring this clearly to the public in Portland without doing this. So I think it's a necessity.
Well said, John. All right, I'm gonna call the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Opposed?
Abstentions? All right. Do you get the votes? You got the votes? Okay, great. Hello. Motion passed.
Opposed?
Since it's passed, we need to set up 2 meetings right now. We can set up a public hearing for November 5th at 6:30. It'd be the proposed time I have. It'll be right before our last Board of Selectmen meeting for this group.
You want a
You want a
motion?
motion
Yeah,
for
let's
that?
do a motion.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
Okay, make that motion that we
I'll
will.
second it.
Okay, Tim seconds it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Also, we need to do a town meeting. I'd like to propose we do on November 5th at 6:40.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Okay. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. Great. Thank you very much. All right. This is kind of the meat of the meeting tonight, so before I get started with this, a couple things I wanted to say. I want to thank the Strategic Capital Improvements Committee for all the work that they did putting this together. You guys did this on the heels of another study from Lou and multiple studies in the past, so we appreciate all the time and effort that you put into this, the feedback from other residents, the conversations you had outside the meeting room as well as inside. This has occupied a great deal of space in Portland from residents for a lot of reasons, so I'm really glad that we were able to get that together and provide the report that we'll be taking in tonight. What I'd hope to do tonight is start the discussion with us. We've been talking about this, I guess, unofficially, indirectly over the last couple of months. We now have the finalized report, and I want to get discussion going tonight. So before we do, I'd like to, I guess, officially bring this into our Board of Selectmen meeting and accept what we've been given here. And from my point of view, this is probably going to evolve. I know there's some new information that's come up, but what we have here is a good starting point. It gives us a place to go. It's very detailed in terms of the information on all three schools, high school and middle school as well. So we have a lot to work with here. So I'd like to, I guess, ask for a motion to accept or ask for this to be accepted. And
I guess I'll make a motion that we accept the report as presented for the purposes of providing a basis for our discussions going forward.
I'll second that.
second that.
Yeah.
All right. Anyone else want to add something to that? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? All right, motion carries. Excellent. All right. One more thing to do and then we get, well, no, we'll do it right now. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to start to my left and just have everyone, I guess, give their feedback on maybe their initial thoughts about this. Everyone's read it. Everyone's gone through it. Why don't we kind of go once through just initial feedback and feelings on this thing, and then we'll start some discussion about this. Kind of go from there. So,
You should start the discussion. You've been the liaison for.
Yeah, Jim just said it. I was the Board of Selectmen liaison to this committee. I kudos to everybody that gave their time, many, many months of time, going through this concept and leaving no rock unturned. I think it's unique. This committee did not come in with a fresh start. This committee came in with one study that had already been conducted, with a proposal that was made. That was never really completely cleared off the table, because I don't believe it was really formally accepted by this board. And then we moved on to do the survey. So, you know, I think the water was a little bit muddied. With that being said, I think this committee went in with a charge from this group to look at the process and come back with a plan which eliminated one building, one school from the process. And I can say from being there and sitting on this committee that every night that there was a return to the wording of that, it seemed like, because there was a very strong effort to ensure that we were doing exactly what that group was charged to do. I will say that there was an effort, and I'll say it. Ben Serb held our nose to the grindstone through that whole process, because he really was in that group looking at how can we do this as capital improvements. And, you know, I've been the one that's been saying all along, and I still strongly believe this needs to go to some kind of a public forum where people can hear what happened in those meetings and why. Because weeks were spent going through a green bar report of all the expenses in every school, line by line by line by line, with Bob Shea doing a yeoman's work on trying to look at every one of those and revising a spreadsheet with every meeting. And Carl Johnson, who chaired the committee and was the former person that held Bob Shea's job before him. So they brought a wealth of understanding to that committee about the health of those buildings. They knew it. I think it's, at least from my opinion, I don't want to speak for the committee, but all those weeks of going through those costs and trying to eliminate as many costs as we could and kind of push them over to the capital expense side of the chart, I think it became clear that capital expense seems like a nice way to do it, but I don't think in reality capital expense is the way you can do it, because there are repairs that you can make to the schools, but we watched year upon year. Somebody said 10 years maybe for a plan of capital improvements. and the costs are increasing so rapidly. You know, and that's one of the reasons I really want people to have a forum to hear this, because they need to ask everybody to sit and listen to those meetings. That's not fair. But that's the reality, that the costs are there. The three schools were looked at. The group went out and physically walked through each of the schools. They looked at everything from the basement and the furnaces. Some of us stuck our heads in the ceilings to see what was above the suspended ceilings. I mean, we looked at everything. And I think the committee had a very good picture of where we stand as a town with our school buildings. By the time we got done doing that, going through all the costs and all the expenses, listening to Carl's memories of what was and listening to Bob Shea speak of what is, we looked at the three schools on the committee and tried to, based upon, I'm missing a whole huge piece, we spent a great amount of time understanding how the state reimbursement process works. And I'm sure Charles and Carl can explain it better than I, but there is when you're taking state reimbursement dollars, there's kind of a point of no return. Once you start reaching a level where you've made so many enhancements or so many corrections to a structure, you cross that line where it no longer becomes a few capital improvements. It becomes, you got to fix the whole building. So, you know, in our review of the buildings and in where all the buildings, what they look like, from my perspective, I agreed to that Valley View should be one of the schools that we keep in the mix. I based as one of my reasons that it's an elementary school. It is built as an elementary school. We're talking about elementary students that need to be in a school, but that also is the one school that sits on a large parcel of buildable property. And if at some point in the future, we need another plot of land, that piece of land on Hall Hill Road is priceless. So from my perspective, I think that's why I selected Valley View. And then it really, for me, came down to Gildersleeve and Biss and which one we should give back. I'll be honest, originally I was thinking about Biss as the one to repair as the other school. But when we did the walkthrough and I looked at the front part of Biss, which was built as Portland High School in the 1930s, it's built like a fortress. I mean, it's not, you can't easily remove partitions. You can't easily widen doors to make them handicapped accessible. The hallways are wider than a standard elementary school. There were just so many aspects of that in my mind could be problematic. Gildersleeve was built as an elementary school and still meets those needs as an elementary school. And then I from my perspective, I looked at the location of this, the historical aspects of this. There were a number of teachers who came forward and a number of residents who came forward who spoke not only to, Biss's age and the enhancements that need to be made to it, but they also spoke to the enhancement of the riverfront and the brownfield properties and the spa coming in and the potential for Middlesex Avenue to become a very traveled road. All those things kind of led me to the other concept of accepting Biss, accepting Gildersleeve, the other building built as an elementary school. Then we got to the decision of how do we leverage the state reimbursement. And what was interesting is the requirements for state reimbursement now assigns a square footage space per pupil. And I believe that square footage differs as the children are of a different age. With some minor changes to Valley View, just like pushing a wall out a little bit, and those enhancements based upon square footages, we were able to do a renovate to new of that building, which was the decision made by the group, which would essentially give us 3 additional classrooms, 3 or 4, in the existing square footage of the building. So to me, that was a no-brainer. When we got to Gildersleeve, there, again, coming back to that square footage per child, that building was overbuilt. I think it was 9,000 square feet. There were too many square feet in that building. So to leverage that building for a full renovation and most reimbursement from the state, which I think with Valley View is about 60% reimbursement, thereabouts. And then Charles got some more information about potential additional reimbursement, which could help us out even more. But the group decided that it was more important, I think, in my perspective, for future growth, future use of the space in that school, that we would approach doing Gildersleeve as a capital improvement rather than a full renovate to new, because by doing it that way, we were able to keep that 9,000 square feet. Otherwise, we'd be ripping off the back couple additions on the building. So I'm just giving you all what I recall and kind of some of a synopsis of the thought process, because I think you'll understand that the final report and what they came to, which I voted in favor of and I do support, I think is the right way to go. I've said since day one, and I'm sure everybody here will confirm, I said it enough times in the meeting, I don't like the price. But, I do think, I said to some people walking doors, they asked me about it. I said, listen, here's the reality. I said, if you've got a home, you're mortgaged up the gills, but your roof is leaking and you got black mold coming in your house, for the safety of your wife and your children, and for the safety of the value of your property, you're going to fix it. And you find a way to do it. I think that the residents need an opportunity to, in one or more forums, to hear what this committee did, to hear the reason why these decisions were made the way they were, to hear that, at least in my opinion, continuing to try to just do capital improvements, catch as catch can, is very difficult. The cost, and the question was also asked, why couldn't we just go back to the one school again? And I did, from information that was provided to us by Friar Architects, I did a little research and I confirmed the number. They said that between 2024 and 2025, the construction costs increased by 4 to 5%. I think that's conservative. Remembering what the cost was going to be that was on the ballot a year ago, if you took that and added that 4 to 5%, and then let's not forget that this project also took into consideration the couple things that the last bond didn't address, which was the additional funding for the secondary schools repairs, which we were able, actually with Bob Shea's assistance, to actually cut that number down a little bit. And we also allocated a few $1 million to BIS to make some changes there so that building can be used. If you take just that secondary school cost, add it on to the cost that we had on the ballot a year or more ago, and then add 5% to that, you're darn close back to the cost that we had on the ballot originally. But in my mind, you're getting a building that the town can, in BIS, a building that the town can take and utilize for town purposes, can utilize for town and commercial purposes, or can decide to just use it for commercial purposes, however they choose to do it. But I think that the folks have to understand, and I don't think we made it clear with the bond question last time, the difference between the gross cost and the net cost. I don't think we made it clear that what it means to a taxpayer with state reimbursement. I think this has to be explained clearly this time around. If the reimbursement that Charles talked about, I'm also the liaison to the Board of Ed, so I've been privy to some of what the superintendent has talked about at meetings. There is additional state reimbursement potentially available and Charles, somewhere down the line, correct me if I'm wrong. But, you know, we're at 50, 55, 60% now with this proposed plan. It could be up to 75% reimbursement from the state if it involves pre-K and special ed, I believe. So, you know, I think everybody has to understand what the plan is, has to understand what it's ultimately going to cost us if the state provides us up to 75% reimbursement. You know, and I think the time is now to do something with this. So long response to a short answer. I support what's here. I don't like the price, but I think with new information that we have, the price can be valid.
Thank you. That was a lot of words.
Sorry.
But that was good, though. I think that was a real nice comprehensive overview on what is. Charles, did he miss anything?
I can update you on that reimbursement.
I think we'll go through this first, and then I'll bring it up as soon as I can.
Yep.
Public comment.
So thank you, John. That's kind of without going through some of that level of detail. I am unquestionably supporting a plan where we close down, basically we consolidate and close down one of the schools. I think long-term that gains us some operational efficiency, which I think we owe to the Portland taxpayers. There's going to be a cost to get there, but it's going to improve the school environment for the kids that are in our schools when we do that. And it's going to provide long-term operational savings, which I think is important. I want to also say thank you to the committee for the outstanding work. This is an issue that's going to basically impact our town for decades. It's something that's important to get right. So I'm glad that time has been taken to do that. And I also feel it's really important that there's going to be evolving information, whether it's on the rates or, if there's any adjustments where we may have to make as anything changes. I think that continued discussion, having the committee staying in place as we are communicating and answering questions to the public and socializing the plan with the public, getting additional questions and feedback from the public, which I think is key. It'll be nice to have the support of the committee and the expertise that they've developed to be able to answer some of those questions. Sometimes it'll be why are you doing this? And then why are you not doing that? Be able to answer both of those. So I will say, just kind of summarizing, I am in support of us closing down one of the schools. I was probably very mixed about which one it would be, but I think the evaluation and how it landed, it seems to me that Biz would be the right school for us to close down and to do the work at Gildersleeve. I think that there's been a lot of good work to evaluate that. I also think that there are things that we know we can do as a community with Biz that we also need to be evaluating to be able to answer some of those questions as they come up from the public.
Can I just insert one thing I forgot? Another element of why is this important to this project is that as you take the multi-year process of renovating the couple schools, you have to relocate your kids. This gives us the ability to do that. Because part of one of the first decisions made by the committee was to move sixth grade up to the middle school up on the hill in the secondary schools. And once you do that, you have essentially that full school on Main Street that you can move your children into and rotate through as you do the renovation. So that's another aspect of this.
Thank you, Jim. I'll keep mine a little bit shorter.
Thank you.
I'm happy to. So I was very much in favor of the one school concept when that was being bantered about for a lot of reasons. The educators said it was better for education. They could follow the special ed kids all the way through. It was better for making it safer. It's one school to defend rather than three schools to defend. But despite my supporting that, and I think the information didn't get out properly, I think there's some lessons we learned from that. I really like this plan. I think this is a better, more comprehensive plan. And the conclusion that they've come to, at least tentative conclusion based on some new information, and looking at Brownstone as being the school makes sense to me because it involves doing more work at the middle school, high school. It involves getting Brownstone renovated. That makes sense to me. Also, with all the work and things going on right now with the spa, with Brainerd Place, with additional business in town, with traffic on Main Street, getting the kids off of there and putting something else. I know hotel's been bantered about for a long time, but doing something with that, making it walkable, making it be something that people are walking to and from, I think would be great for our town community. We've been trying to get a town center feel for such a long time. And I think this finally has all the pieces in place to make that happen. So I really like that. And what's made it even more exciting to me is the possibility that the state will incentivize towns to bring in pre-K in and expand that. And if that gives us an extra 10% that we can do that much more work with, and if the bond, allows us to do that much more work, that's even better. So I'm actually looking forward to the details on that. I believe you guys are working on that as well and getting the numbers. So I also am trying to balance out the cost of that with the needs of the town as well. So I'm trying to be more centered on what we need to do and trying to balance it with everything else going on. But right now, from everything I've heard, it makes sense to me. I think it's the right school to choose, not only from parents, but just talking to some of the teachers there who have been really hot in the summer months, or at least towards the summer months, and very cold in the winter. There are things about that school that are quaint and wonderful unless you're working there. So there are some things that could be done. But anyways, that is my remit it's worth. So,
My turn.
yes.
Well, I'll say Charles had shared the plan, and I had seen it, and after it was available, and my first thought after I read it was that this is an incredibly defensible plan. You can really get behind this. It's not a plan everybody's going to like. It's not going to meet everybody's needs. I think it was really regrettable that the one school plan failed, and there was a lot of reasons for that. And we need to learn from those and take the steps necessary to educate, as John said, people. I don't think we should make them watch all the meetings, though. I watched them all, and I can tell you, it's not exciting, but they really get in and they dig into the details. And as John said, you learn how they got to where they got to. And one of the most telling things in the report is early on when they point out that for almost 30 years, this town failed to plan adequately for our capital improvements. And certainly the last 20 years after the high school, middle school was built, when we should have been putting money aside and taking care of those needs as they came up and not lead us to where we are today with schools that really are not well suited for the students that are being served there now. And there's just a lot of unmet needs. And even if this is approved to go forward tomorrow, we're not actually going to see the kind of change we need for another almost 3 years. People should think about that. And, as a board member here, I say we need to not kick this can down the road, and we need to take steps to move forward and work with the community, get it up for a referendum. Maybe this exact plan that was documented isn't exactly what we end up doing, but I think that the closing a school and closing Brownstone is absolutely the way to go. It's a square peg, round hole situation. Is no longer suitable for children of that age. And the last thing we want to do is bring something to referendum that we aren't 100% confident is going to pass. So we need to take the steps necessary in all regards to shape it and make sure that we get the input, that we listen, we hear what people have to say, we communicate what we think is best, and we move forward in a way that gets us to the goal line. That's
What's that?
I agree with what John said, that I'm not crazy about the price. I agree with Jim about consolidating the schools. That should have been done many, many years ago, and the town just wouldn't pull the cord and do it. I'm not thrilled about putting $2 million in for Brownstone, whether it's a municipal building, which I think will be a nightmare, or whether it gets sold and put back on the tax rolls. I think the people just need to come out and vote and say what they want. I'll leave it up to them to get informed and make your decision. But either way, something has to be done, whether it's this or dumping millions in capital into the 2 buildings we decide to keep open. Because one has to close no matter what.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, so like everyone here on the board, we've been watching this very closely, and what I personally feel that the committee got the assignment wrong. All around, there's a couple of things I could agree with, but for the most part, I think they didn't do the job that was a task, was a capital improvement committee. I would have liked to seen capital improvements across the board. I don't like the idea of renovation to new for Valley View. But what I do like, and I am in favor of closing a school, and that was their decision to close Brownstone. I'll accept that one. And I am definitely in favor for that. But where lies another problem is one of the first meetings I went to, I spoke a public comment. I gave each member my business card with my knowledge and expertise in the field of HVAC, building automation, security, and not one person, well, one person reached out to me. We had a great talk. I introduced them to multiple mechanical contractors, engineers, everything like that. But then I got ghosted after that. Nobody reached out to me. So I'm not going to speak on this side of the table about this project because I'm not going to be around to vote on it, but I'll be there for when you have the forums with the citizens. And I am going to present my thoughts and my feelings of how this whole thing should have went down. So I'm going to save all my commentary for that, I guess. So like I said, I just didn't think the assignment, they got it wrong, and they can do better.
Thanks, Mike. Listen, the more voices, the better. I'm sure there's people out there that feel the same way you do.
Yeah, I mean,
No.
Tim said it, not everyone's gonna agree, and
100%.
I'm gonna be on the other side of the fence on this.
There's an old saying, I mean, you learn more from debating someone that disagrees with you than someone agrees with you. So that's, it makes you have to prove your point and sell it better. And speaking of selling better, what I don't think, oh, Rick, I'm sorry. You just see your top of your head.
I'm
There you
here.
are.
I'm
All right.
listening.
You're up, sir.
Was looking a little like Kilroy there.
I know. I want to make sure you're awake.
You want me to make a couple comments or save it for when I'm in person? Is this going to be on the agenda the next meeting as well?
I would imagine. I think
Okay.
it'll probably be yes.
Well, all right. Well, I'll just say briefly, I like the one school concept, but that ship seems to have sailed. What really perturbs me, and I mentioned it at the last Board of Selectmen meeting when we were chatting, is we essentially, with this plan, we haven't closed any buildings. Now, I guess it's still to be determined what ultimately happens with Brownstone Intermediate building. But, I mean, if we just make that another town building, what have we really saved? We're still operating all these buildings. We still have to maintain them. Whether it comes from the Board of Education budget or the town budget, we're still sort of in the real estate business here. So I probably could get behind this plan, but I really think a building needs to be transformed to the private sector and get on the tax rolls. Instead of just the town owning and operating all these properties. And I also, and this has been said by the others, I don't think the last referendum was well presented. I don't think the general population totally understood that. So hopefully with whatever we finally put out there for the referendum, we need to do a better job of explaining the costs and how the state reimbursements work. But I do feel that, to me, Valley View is worth saving because there's land up there. I like the idea of all the schools, boom, 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 on the same road. It's not as busy as Main Street. That makes a lot of sense to me, keeping Valley View. And I never felt that this one school was really that onerous. I've been involved in towns where they've had one big elementary school and things seem to work fine. But again, that seems to have sailed. I think if we're going to keep two schools, Gildersleeve's the better of the others to keep. But I really would question and have people weigh in, like, what should we really do with Biz? Because, maybe it becomes one big municipal building and we do something else with the old central school. But to just keep maintaining all these buildings when we don't truly need them, in my opinion, is sort of my issue with this. But I agree, we need to do something. We've had two committees. We've been talking about this for years now. It actually started when I was on board of Selectmen about 6 years ago. We started talking about this. So I'm all for moving forward.
Never doubt.
Okay, that's it. That's all I have to say for tonight.
There you go. No, I think you hit it on the head. I think what to do with Brownstone, if that ultimately is the school, which sounds like it will be, makes the most sense. What to do with that school is going to be a big topic of conversation. We're going to be discussing what to do with that, looking at options. I know people have talked about possibly a hotel there or a developer doing something with it. And Nordic Spa's even mentioned something there. But it's going to be looked at really closely. So I think that we need to go into that with eyes open. And again, lesson learned from the last referendum, we need to educate, we need to get interactive, we need to get out there and explain it in a simple way. I use the example of Weathersfield recently passed a very large referendum. I believe it was over $260 million, I think, of which the town was doing 83 or 86 million. It was a significant amount. They were able to get it passed, not because they were trying to sell it and trying to, tell half-truths, but they were educating people on what it was. And I think whatever the board makeup is starting next month, we have to educate people on what we're not trying to sell anything. We're trying to say this makes the most sense and here's why. So I think that's going to have to be, I guess, the charge of the next board to really do that. So there'll be some faces here, but there'll be some new ones. With that, Charles, would you like to go up there and fill us in? And I'm sure they may have some questions for you.
So I'm not gonna talk about anything before September. I want to talk about moving forward. Right? There's been some new developments that will was information that the strategic planning committee didn't have, that only became available because there were changes made during the last legislative session. And literally, I only learned about them this September as I went to all of my legal updates with CAPS and Shipman and Goodwin. And they're all great things. Like, these are huge, promising opportunities for the town. The first has to do with pre-K, right? So right now we do run a pre-K program. It's a half-day program, AM and PM session. We don't charge the students tuition for it. It's there because of our responsibilities to provide for the children who are special needs and then non-disabled peers, and we have those two programs. The state, we've talked a lot about, both on the facilities and the strategic planning committees, what might happen if pre-K became a required grade serviced by schools like kindergarten, right? If the guaranteed experience for kids was pre-K 12, now it's not. Now it's K-12, but we are responsible for the special education services out of pre-K. What the state has done, and again, this is just new news, is they've decided not to require us to do it, but to incentivize us to do it. And the state last year I'm going to put in, I guess, about $300 million in a large amount of money in a trust fund. And they've said to towns and parents, if you're a family that makes less than $100,000 a year, the state will pay your tuition for pre-K using this trust fund. If you make above $100,000 a year, it's on a sliding scale up to an amount where you're no longer subsidized. That then makes it changes the equation significantly for our families because pre-K becomes affordable. I'm sure anybody who hears the sound of my voice knows how expensive pre-K is. When I had both my kids in daycare and pre-K, I was paying more for two of them than I was my mortgage, right? That's how much, and we saw the United Way down. It crushes families. Because this trust fund is there, it does make sense for the Board of Ed and the town to have a conversation about expanding pre-K, maybe to 4 classrooms. So we have our 2 half-day classrooms and 2 full-day classrooms, and then we can charge tuition. And if you make under $100,000 a year, that tuition would be paid from this trust fund. So interesting consideration about pre-K and how many pre-K classrooms we'd like to incorporate into a pre-K2 Valley, right? No decisions are made on that, but that's a new variable for us to consider, a tuition-based pre-K program that would support many of our families who are now being crushed by the cost of pre-K. Very exciting. To further incentivize schools to do that, the state is offering a bonus now. It used to be that any pre-K classroom that you build would be subject to your general construction rate and 15% for just those spaces. So they've now said that 15%, this is incredible, goes to the entire project. So our reimbursement rate now is 54%. If we maintain 5% of the seats at a renovate to new school as open choice, we get an additional 55% bonus. So that would get us to 59%. And by incorporating pre-K in it, we add 15% on top of that. We are at the potential for eligible costs, 74% reimbursement from the state. So we could be leveraging 74 cents on the dollar paid for eligible costs, paid for by the Department of Administrative Services, and the other paid for by the town. That makes a renovate to new pre-K2 school imminently affordable, way cheaper than capital improvements, right? Because there you're not getting nearly anywhere near 74%. So Valley View is like a slam dunk at this point, both in terms of that added bonus, which is a change to state law, and the opportunity to potentially expand pre-K to support our families on a tuition basis subsidized by this trust fund. That's huge to me. I mean, that's going to make Valley View very affordable. That then shifts our conversation to Gildersley, right? So part of the reason why the committee said, don't do a renovate to new and lop off 9,000 square feet at Gildersley is because that space might be essential someday if we added full day pre-K or saw a bump in population, right? So we saw a premium on that 9,000 square feet, which is about 18%, almost 20, almost a fifth of the footprint of Gildersley, saving that so that the space would be there in the future if pre-K were to be added full day or population were to grow. Now we're having yet another demographic study, so we'll be able to get a look at that. We're already seeing the effect of Brainerd Place, 1 student, right? So we'll have that data. And if we did what I'm talking about at pre-K at Valley View, that would take that off the table. Like we wouldn't be growing pre-K, we would address it with this trust fund and a pre-K program. And if we're not seeing any future big bumps in population, including the impact of Brainerd Place, we might now want to consider what is more cost effective, the alterations plan the strategic committee considered, or maybe go back to the renovate to new plan at Gildersley and see and have the conversation about what's more cost effective. So all those things is new news since the committee met last August.
Just Charles, can you just tell us what because I can't recall what the reimbursement percentage is at Gildersleeve in its current status and what the reimbursement rate could be like at Gildersleeve if we decide to do a renovate to new.
So you wouldn't get the 15% for pre-K because it would be a 3-5 vote. What you'd get is if you did renovate to new, the 54%, plus the 5% bonus if we maintain 5% of the seats for open choice students, you'd be at 59% reimbursement.
And what is it now with the capital improvements? Do we have any rough idea?
So it's not nearly that much. There's some, particularly for roofs, ADA compliance measures and other things, but it's not anywhere close to, 59%. So, but these are numbers. These are things we have to look at. And I'm wondering if the strategic planning committee had known about the pre-K, the trust fund, the 15%, and if we take care of pre-K, we don't have to worry about saving the space at a premium, maybe that would have changed the calculus of it. So all of that's new information and is going to require some more thinking. So I know the Board of Education supports the plan, supports the big picture of move sixth grade to the middle school, Valley View turn it into a pre-K 2 school, Gildersleeve turn it into a 3-5 school. That everything I just told you doesn't change that equation, but everything I did just tell you merits considerations that might affect whether you do alterations or renovate to new at Gildersleeve, and how many pre-K classrooms you want to put on down. That said, last night, the Board of Ed voted to form a new committee, say, so the number 30, right? It's a education specifications plan task force, right? Laurel, as board chair, is going to start appointing people. She appointed herself and 2 board members last night. She's shortly going to be reaching out and asking if there are 2 of you that would be willing to serve on that. I think we need a teacher or 2 and a community members. And I'm hoping maybe Carl, let's start recruiting some people. Again, not to do any options or anything beyond anything outside of the scope of what the strategic planning committee has done, but to start working with us to answer some of those questions and give directions to our architect. So our architect can go put the conceptual order of magnitude budget together with Downs Construction, build an education specifications plan, put together the blocking diagrams, put together the 3D models, collaborate with us with the Department of Administrative Services to figure out the exact percentage we would be dialing in on and lay it all out for us. In terms of an ambitious timeline, my feeling is we really need to have all of that work done, which is why, thank you, and I'm hoping that this prevails on November 5th, because we need to pay that architect. We can't move forward without that. I can't do this. And I'm not Downs Construction. I can't put together a conceptual order magnitude budget. This is the work of architects and professionals in that field. But assuming all goes well, this is how ambitious I think we need to do this. I'm hoping we answer the questions I just asked, incorporate the new information, direct the architect to do that, pull all of those numbers together for the Board of Ed and for you by Thanksgiving. Right now, Halloween's next week. Do the math. Right? I'm thinking in 5 weeks here, we're going to work hard, and the demographer is going to have his study done. I spoke with him yesterday by the middle of November. I spoke with the architect and he's ready to go. He knows us well. He can pull this together. I think we could have that information ready by the first week of December, right? At that point, then we're not done, needs to go to the town financial planner, needs to go to the bond council, lots of conversations. The Board of Ed needs to approve an specs plan. All of that work, I think, needs to be done December, January, right? At some point, if all of that goes well and the newly constituted after the election Board of Selectmen and Board of Education votes the ways we need to vote, it's going to be heading towards that, what I think will be the May bonding referendum, right? But backing up from that, I think we really need to get going over the next 5 weeks with this task force so that we can be watching football and eating turkey with a plan on the table to look at. So that was a lot. Let me answer questions.
The legislation that was passed that creates the trust fund and is providing these additional opportunities. Is that a plan that's got a particular sunset window, or is that, does that have a sunset on it, or is that something that is kind of set up until the legislature changes it?
Excellent question. It is brand new. Nobody is accessing the funds in that yet. We're still learning about that from the Office of Early Childhood. They've been the one that have, that is the agency at the state that is tasked with managing it. They're scrambling, they're meeting with superintendents and priests, because it's not just public schools, it's private parochial that can charge this fund tuition, right? My understanding is that the first checks from that as a tuition, they're looking for at 2027, which boy does not line up perfect. Right, so they're looking to start offering this subsidized tuition for families seeking help with pre-K up to 100% if you're under $100,000 a year. Right around the time, if we do our work, we would be cutting ribbons and opening up pre-K to Valley View with the space to start working with these children. So it's exciting. It all kind of lined up. Like the world's aligned nicely on this.
So even if we didn't get paid tuition, but we'd still be eligible for the 15%.
Just as a function of our current 2 classrooms, we would absolutely be eligible for the 74% with that 15% bonus. So 54% plus the 5% for open choice, plus the 15% applied to the whole building, which is amazing. Like it used to be, we would be eligible for that 15% only on those 2 classrooms, only on the square footage for 2 pre-K classrooms. To incentivize schools to build the space to support more pre-K, they've said you build a whole school, even if you have 1 pre-K classroom in it, we'll give you the 15% bonus on the whole project. Bobby, that's game changer. I almost fell off my chair when like, we
Is
can't
this
sell that to this town. What do we
Pre-K
do?
4, or is it like, or would it ever step down further? Is it like kindergarten, pre-K 4, 3, 5? Like, what, how many pre-Ks are there? You start at pre-K 3, 4, 5,
Our pre-K kids are 3 and 4.
3 and 4.
Right.
So, and how many classrooms would you be like, how many classrooms would you want to build for them?
Right now, we have 2.
Yeah, and how many would you like to build for them?
That's a decision that
In your opinion, what would you like to do?
you're asking me right now.
Yes.
Please don't hold me to it.
No,
I'd go 4.
you want, we're like 4.
I would be very comfortable that we could support our current half-day program. And I'm confident we could get 30 more kids out of Portland for a full day, 2 classroom basis pre-K.
And it would be more appealing to parents if it was paid for by the state. Or a part of it.
Look, the problem with pre-K right now is many parents choose not to send their kids to pre-K because they can't afford it. Right? Young parents out there hearing my voice are going to be shaking their heads, probably hurting their neck. Pre-K is so expensive for our families, right? And lots of families simply can't afford that. So they make decisions like one of the parents stays home and doesn't work because it's cheaper not to work than to pay for pre-K, or if grandparents are available, or, I don't want to throw this out there, but other opportunities to care for the kids so you can go to work that wouldn't be nearly as high quality as I would provide. That sounds a little arrogant, but it's true. I will have certified teachers in an amazing environment. Who wouldn't want to send their kids to a brand new pre-K program in a renovated to new school? If you're making under $100,000 fully subsidized. That's why I'm confident we could get 30 kids. I think we would have a waiting list. But I got a lot of work to do. Make sense?
Makes sense.
Do you know, Charles, do you know the upper end, like you said, it's a sliding scale above 100? In terms of, do you know what that,
I don't know.
or an
the cap
approximate?
is.
Okay.
Don't know the cap. So there's one other thing I just want to drop on, right? Just because it was brought up by Dave Murphy last night, and you watched the tape, he said it very passionately, and I heard him, and I was nodding my head, right? And I know you heard him too, right? One of the things, and I don't know that it's incorporated into the $85,000 or being done by the land use, not the plan of conservation group, but one of the things that we really need to do for the community is have a financial planner or a qualified group of people take a full look at the Portland portfolio, right? What is your net brand list going to be when Nordic Spa comes on?
Right.
What is it going to be when the tax abatement at Brainerd comes on? How is it growing because you put the cars from Brainerd Place on the tax roll? What is it going to mean, the secondary schools off debt service when the park comes on, right? What are your other liabilities though? Your water, your sewer, fire, Parks and Rec, what are your other liabilities? Somebody needs to come in and lay all that out to say, by the time you have to start paying back the bond on the secondary school, and I need to give you what the overhead savings is. If we close a school, we're reducing the positions for that. And yes, if you keep Brownstone, some of it's going to move from the Board of Ed to the town, right? But there are some savings just in administrative overhead, significant savings. We need to do all of that work to look at what your assets and your liabilities are going to be, the growth of the net brand list with all the development in town, which is amazing, so that when we go out to the community with David Eisenthal's amortization table, we're able to say, hey, that mill increase as a result of this new bonding is offset by these new revenue sources from growth in net brand list. So the real impact to the average property tax owner in town is X, right? I just say that because I can't do that. And I know the Board of Ed can't do that, but I heard Dave Murphy say it last night. It is one of the ancillary recommendations in the strategic planning committee report. And I really think that it would be smart to do that as we put together all of this data information and costs.
I can tell you that's one of the reasons that it's very important that we do and have the time to do the education. Because even looking at how we had to write up the bond, the bond question for the water, we tried to talk about some of those things. And when you look at bond council, it's very restrictive what's in there for what you can put in there for language. So that just makes the education and having the conversations with the community that much more important ahead of the bond question.
I think it's educational to look back at how the Route 17 park was handled. There were a number of public forums.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of questions about that park. And I think they answered a fair number of them in those sessions.
Well,
Yeah, and by the way, the complexion of that park changed a little bit as a result of those things that
absolutely.
the community brought in and said, we'd like to see this feature, that feature, and that, I mean, that was valuable feedback to help get people to help people buy into the park. It became more their park by doing that.
Agree. And as with most things expensive, it's going to get down to what's affordable. So it's going to have to be Kim deciding that $400 a year toward this project, whatever the taxes would be or the net effect, is that worth it or not? That's going to be, I think, a decision a lot of voters are going to do. So we have to make sure we know all the numbers. I already have Rich and Tom working on what the numbers look like over the next couple of years, trying to blend in what's going on with business in town as well. So we'll be working on that as the committee that's being formed now is looking at the details and the money, but that's what it's going to get down to. So when we go out there, we have to convince a resident in town, a homeowner or a renter that here's what the cost is going to be, here's where it's offset by, but people want to know a number, they want to know what, if they think they can afford $500 a month for a car, and that's what they want to hear, if they know what it's going to be for them individually. I think that's what we need to do. That's gonna be a big one, and simplify.
That's also the thing that's gonna be a hard sell. Like Charles said, is anticipated taxes from the two big developments in town is to tell people that we already have a plan on how we're going to spend the money. And that's not going to even cover the price tag of the bonding. So luckily those two developments are being done. But on top of that, you have to kick in this much money on top of it,
Of course.
to pay for it.
Of course.
I mean, all along,
And
ultimately,
and we're not addressing any other infrastructure in town.
Sure. Right. I mean, ultimately, when this goes to a public vote, it is the residents' decision to choose whether they want it or not. My whole argument all along has been, I just want an educated individual going to cast their vote.
Right.
And, to like we did last time, to have a number of multi-page charts on a website and to drive everybody to the website and have them try to figure it out. To me, that didn't make sense and still doesn't.
The biggest question everyone's gonna get asked in person at those meetings, what is it going to cost me? Not the
Right.
cost of the buildings,
Right.
because that's what their judgment is gonna be.
course.
Is it
Right.
$200 a year in taxes, or is it $800 a year in taxes?
Exactly, exactly.
So that's what they're gonna base their opinion on.
Mhm.
So we need the best estimate to put out there to
Absolutely.
tell the people,
Yeah.
you know, the $200,000 house, you're gonna pay X amount more.
And that's, I think, largely,
And
that was one
if
thing
we
we just.
can't tell them that,
Santi.
they're gonna vote no, because they're not gonna approve in uncertainty.
Absolutely, there has to be
Right.
certainty,
Yeah.
100%. And not only that, though, but we also have to let them know that we have the capability to handle an emergency. Something happens down at the sewer plant, or
Mhm.
whatever, we have built-in flexibility to handle something more. So it's a big ask, and it's gonna be a lot. And however the board is made up, that's a lot to do, and we need to distill down exactly that. Bob.
And the thing is, with what the town's been doing the last few years, the residents are getting used to, water main replacements, repaving roads. We're doing something that the town hasn't done in decades. They haven't done it in my lifetime.
Mhm.
Before the last 3 years, the only thing that's ever been done is Spring Street. No other road has ever been repaved in town. And I think the residents are finally seeing what they're getting for their tax dollars. And if that comes to a stop because we can't afford it anymore, or they can't afford it anymore because they can't afford to pay the taxes, there's gonna be a lot of unhappy residents in town.
Right.
So they're gonna wanna see that we have a plan to keep doing what we're doing on top of what our plan is for the school system.
What I said to a lot of people that asked the question, why are you doing this running? I said, listen, this is not a job for the faint of heart, us guys sitting. I mean, the reality is that we represent, as much as we represent young families with children who look at this as the most important decision that they've got to make, and they're more than willing to pay for it.
It's the seniors.
We
on
also have to
limited income.
represent the seniors.
Right.
We have to represent the single individuals.
Mhm.
We got to find a way to balance all that. And it's hard.
I do want to share what I've been knocking on doors as well lately, and I've been surprised at how many seniors have been very open to that, but they want to know more. Because it'd be easy as a senior, the kids have already gone through schools. But I've run into a number of them that have been very open to that because they get it's good. It's kind of their contribution to the next generation. So that gave me some encouragement, because it'd be easy just to say they don't want to pay anything more. right?
If you look at the sign in front of the town hall, the old central school, and you see when that was built as the high school. The next high school was the front half of this, which I believe was built in the thirties. So there was 1870s, 1880, I think. So it's like 50 years between the old high school and the high school on Main Street. And then the high school on the hill was built in the 1960s, from the 30s to the 60s. So you got another 30 years there. But you're right, Bobby, when you look at Valley View and Gildersleeve, these schools date back to the 1960s.
Mhm.
I mean, you're talking 50 or 60 years since there's been any substantial changes made to those schools. Yeah,
And
it's long overdue.
The town's biggest mistake was when the new middle school was built.
Mhm.
We had, besides some small window projects and things at Biz, we did nothing to the schools.
Right.
We did no improvements. All we did was emergency repairs and whatever came up. We were reactive and not proactive.
Mhm.
I agree.
And now we're paying the price for that.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Right. But I got to tell you, after everything's been said and done, I think we have a really good starting point. We're probably closest now. And hopefully the next month or two will show to coming up with a plan that
Mhm.
I would feel comfortable telling my neighbors that
Well,
made sense.
it could be some big swings with the reimbursement rates that Charles told us tonight.
Absolutely.
That could swing a lot of people in favor of it because it would reduce their tax increase.
Agreed. Sure. Agreed. All right, ready for the next item?
Yep.
All right. So Michael has brought up that this may be something for the next board, but I think I'm going to go forward with it anyways. This is the Board of Selectmen meetings for next year. If we need to do a modification with the next board, we can always modify these, but these are dates that Michelle put together that shouldn't conflict with anything significant. going forward. And I believe there may be a reason why we have to do it sooner, for some kind of statutory reason, but I'd like to at least vote on this now. And if we need to modify it with the next, Board of Selectmen group, I'd like to go forward.
I'll make a motion, we accept the 2026 calendar of meeting dates.
I second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
All right, motion passes. Excellent. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. All right,
Yes.
he's not gonna be on the board, so makes sense. All right, refunds of excess payments.
Make a motion for a refund of excess payment for David A. Hanrahan, $57.45.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes.
Motion for a refund of excess payment, Mark J. Gianetti, $18.23 and $131.40.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Did he second? Yes. All those opposed? Abstention? Motion passes.
Motion for a refund of excess payment for Nicole and Cheryl Zaluski, $578.37.
I'll second that.
Jim? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Last.
Motion for a refund of excess payment, A Car Leasing Limited, $296.52.
I'll second that.
All right, Tim seconds it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Very good. All right, status and committee reports. Start to my right this time. Have you got anything?
No, capital improvements isn't doing anything yet, and planning and zoning is quiet. Their next meeting should have a public hearing for Brainerd Place for their special permit to be changed.
All right, thank you.
I wasn't able to attend the library board of directors meeting, but I heard the meeting went swimmingly. And the senior citizens advisory committee, I attended their meeting earlier today. That was the new board member Sandy Costelli in attendance, and there was some discussion. I'm going to follow up with how they had a question about the budget item for the dial-a-ride. And I'm going to send an email. I'll copy you.
Okay, great.
Just to ask a question about that.
Gotcha. Fantastic.
I attended 2 Board of Education meetings since the last time. The evening before our last meeting was the sewer problem at the high school, so the Board of Education meeting was postponed till October 14th, so I attended that one. There were just a few quick items. There were a vote to approve 2 FTE paraeducator positions, both funded by grants. There was an approval for a 30-hour floater custodian position. Because there's problems when individuals are sick or whatever, and needed that to be covered. But 20 hours of that 30 is already budgeted, so it was just asking for an additional 10 hours. That was approved. And there was a 2025 CAVE, the Board Recognition Award, and that was accepted unanimously. That was basically the upside of the October 14th meeting. Last night's meeting I attended. They had a presentation from Gildersleeve School on their fall festival that they just had. They had a number of kids there and they all did a really great job. There were, as Charles mentioned, they were also approved the establishment of an Ed Specs task force for the building project. Oh, and there was a discussion about, and I could have this wrong, but Laurel could correct me. Electric bus charging, it's going to be a requirement in 2030. And I guess there's been some discussion with you, or there will be, about trying to find a place where we can set something like that up to charge our buses.
Yeah, we're actively looking.
Right. Oh, and he also gave an update on that very smelly sewer problem. There were kudos to Middletown. I guess Middletown provided us a lot of support. And amazingly got that done in very short orders.
Nice.
That's it.
Awesome.
I was not able to attend the last water and sewer. So I don't have anything in terms of any recent maintenance issues that have occurred.
Okay.
Other than we know that the backup that they did a good job resolving. And basically at this point, I don't think that we really have much new on the negotiations yet, since the last time we all reported in the readout, so.
I just have one question. How are we moving forward with the connection to the sewer line with the business in town? I know that was on the water and sewer agenda.
Is this the one that,
Rain.
you know, with the rainwater that's going in? You know, I have to get an update on that, because that's something that we've been talking about. Because every time we get the heavy rain, you see the spike, you know, down at the sewer plant. We're gonna have to see exactly how we get the business to disconnect that and move properly, so. I don't have an answer for that, but I can certainly look into it for next time.
All right, good. I'm gonna pass my information on during the informal discussion. Public comment. Is there anyone out there that has anything to say?
Tim Hannah, Butler Lane, 43 Butler Lane. I enjoyed listening to all this presentation tonight on the school project, and I have a couple thoughts about that. I've been voting on referendums in this town for 50 years now. So I encourage you, I really like the idea of the forums. I think that's a great idea, and I think they have to be down to earth, just the way John talked to us about the project. When the high school, middle school project was done up there, that was all PR. It was slick. When you walked in that room, if you were pregnant, you couldn't wait for your kid to be in high school to go to that school. It was so if somebody questioned some of the aspects of that school that have proved to be a problem, the feedback, fortunately, there was no social media then, but there was something the matter with you. You were mother of three, anti-child, didn't like schools, didn't like it. And it was just the technical aspects of it that were being glossed over by fancy pictures. So if you're going to do these forums, I think your best people, I mean, Carl and Laurel, the people that have worked on it from the very beginning and can tell you what's going on in down to earth, taxpayer related ways. We don't need fancy pictures. We need to just know. And you need to understand when people vote in referendums, age changes how you, you know, and you're going to get all aspects of ages there. I can think of votes I've made in the past that now I look back and say, I really voted against that. What was the matter with me? You know, so everybody's got to understand it. There's no question that our taxes are going to go up. And there's no question that senior citizens are going to worry about it more as their incomes are more fixed. Parents need to know that they have safe schools to send their kids to because it's an important thing. So that's my biggest suggestion about that. Use the knowledge and the expertise that you have here, the people that can tell you the down-to-earth facts. Leave out all that brouhaha stuff because it leads in some ways it leads to a false idea of what you're getting. We need great schools that our kids have good teachers in, safe buildings that they can walk into and get what they need there. They don't need granite curbs. They don't need, you know, you've got architects, obviously you have architects. They're going to try and sell you the fancy sides. Kids don't need fancy stuff. They don't need marble facades and all that. They need great teachers, rooms that are serviceable and adaptable, and to get the education that they need to succeed in life. So that would be my thought on that. So, and then to go back to what I talked to you guys about 2 weeks ago with the Butler Lane, I've been doing a little bit more observation, and I don't know, sometimes I think they're going to think I'm a stalker at the high school driveway at 2:15 because there's no congestion. There's no back-to-back traffic. There's nobody at the stop signs waiting to go in. There's no traffic. So I'm really confused about the whole premise behind this. There's still a lot of town vehicles, school buses, full-size school buses going out Butler Lane. I'm still concerned that that's a huge liability. And it's something that I really think you guys gotta, look into, think about a little more. It's, you got the vans going, and I think part of the reason is because if you're coming from the back parking lot or the student parking lot, which is about a third full right now, there's not even a lot of student cars up there. You don't have to go over the speed bumps in the parking lot, which are there as a safety feature. So there's a whole lot of people that are just skipping over the safety features to go out through a dangerous intersection. And I'm still concerned that you're opening up a can of worms and opening up some liability to the town for that. So. Well, that's it.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kim.
Thank you, Kim. Anybody else? All right. Informal discussion. Anyone have anything else they want to bring up?
I just have a couple questions maybe you can answer. Do you know in the apartment building that's open at Brainerd, how much of it is rented right now?
The last number was 73 out of the 99, first apartment building.
And could you ask Rich, does he know how many cars have been added to our tax roll?
I actually asked him earlier today on that number, so I don't have it yet.
Okay.
The statistic.
No, it's early because people just moving in, it might not be transferred yet, whatever, but I
Right.
was just wondering if we can get an
So
idea.
I guess for typical apartments, it's 1.5 cars per apartment. So my guess is it's probably 110, but he's checking it right now. So,
Okay.
because I want to get a number there. That's part of the whole discussion about schools is what's the impact so far that we can see and what's it going to average for every citizen there. So agreed. Oh, if you're talking, we can't hear you yet. Are they still on, Nick? They did. Something we said.
No, they must have thought you moved on, so
There you go.
missed it.
There you go. Maybe look, if they're watching, call back or log back in. All right, you had another question, or was that it?
No, that was it.
Okay, great. Let me just give a quick rundown on some of the projects. I'll take 2 minutes on a faster. High Street Water Main Project. That's going to restart the first week of November. They are going to not be reseeding because it's too late to do that, but they will be coming back in the spring. Bobby's brought up that some places didn't catch, so they're aware that they'll put funding, there'll be funding available for them to reseed in the springtime, anything that they don't do. They should be able to be done within a week and a half to 2 weeks was the best guess. You get the part they have to get done.
Do we have an idea how far they're going?
I'll confirm with you tomorrow and let you know. I think they said 150, 160 feet farther, but they have a specific amount that they can get. They're doing a couple change orders right now, so some of it's fluid, but I'll let you know. Airline Trail, we're still working with Eversource. We're one step closer to getting another department within Eversource to green light the new path that we've put through. So your brother was very helpful in redesigning, but they're doing kind of a cost analysis of that and excavating. So that's one step closer. East Hampton, I'm meeting with them next week. They're looking to get their project started for their part to Portland by next summer. So by a year from now, they should be done and connected to Portland. So it gives us a little bit of time to ramp up and look for funding, but that's what's going on there. Brainerd Place, I already mentioned, they're up to about 73 units for that first apartment. The second one is rolling quickly. They may be starting to rent the top floor of that second building. They said by early January. It's pretty aggressive. I'll keep everyone posted, but they
I
want to
was,
start
I was in there the other day, Mike.
Yeah.
For on the telco side of it.
Right.
And it was, yeah,
Yeah.
they're making a lot of progress.
make a lot of progress. So the sooner they get that rented, obviously the better for them, but they're moving quickly on that. The spa, the last blast for those people that were paying attention was on Monday. We had a big thunder boom this morning from a thunderstorm. Someone thought that was a blast from down there. It was not. I can assure you of it. The 4 people that called me 2 minutes after that. So, but they are moving along quickly. I may have offered a partial day spot to the people that were close to the blasting area that have reached out to me. So that may have been said to them. And the spa said they may accommodate. So that may happen. So that spa, again, they're looking at probably by next November, having that open. Maybe a soft opening, but they're aggressively pushing forward. River access, we had that grand opening or the shovel ceremony about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. They're going to actually start that project also in the first week in November. So that's coming up quickly. I will let people know. Butler had, they were waiting for one of the machines to kind of start hacking all the brush down to the river. So that's going to be the first thing that goes out there. They'll create the path to the river, but that is looking forward. Sidewalks, that has been put off the spring because of weather. They can't pour the concrete if there's going to be some cold conditions. So that one is on slated to start in March, April. But the design looks good. They're doing some new curb cuts, creating some more green space. For example, in front of the police department, they have the sidewalk to nowhere. So they're going to get rid of that sidewalk and make all of that green space. So there's other cuts as well. I'll share with you at the next meeting what that looks like. But that's going to make the Main Street look good. Regarding Main Street, I'm starting to talk to DOT right now about maybe doing a redesign on Main Street. It's their state road, but we have to get their approval to either change how we do the lanes, how we do some of the signage on there. But I want that discussion started as part of the whole safety on Main Street routine, but also how we're going to do parking. Do we do angle parking? Do we not do angle parking? Do we do assigned parking? Do we create parking spaces? There's a lot we have to talk to, but it starts with DOT. So I'm starting that conversation. Anyone that is on the board, when we redo the board, if they want to be join me in helping with that, I welcome that help. So there's a lot to look at. So
Mike, while you're talking about sidewalks, did
Yeah.
we ever get anywhere with the sidewalk on Waverly Extension?
we may have funding available for the sidewalk that's there. We had a lot of overage, which is good. So there may be room for that on one side.
Yep.
So
Okay.
if I had to put odds on it, I think we got a 50-50 shot. So
Like when you say we might be able to have enough funding for one side, would
For
we be
one s-
looking to do one side and then come back and do the other? Or are
Uh,
we
when
looking
it
at
wastes
one
the
side
money.
and removing, right, and then removing?
probably the second, we're moving, doing
Yeah,
the one side
removing.
because,
Yeah.
and the residents there.
So that's what would make the most sense.
Because the road is only 2 houses deep.
Yeah.
To have a sidewalk on both sides of the street is ridiculous.
And if we can extend our dollars.
That's kind of
absolutely.
that's where I was going. I
Yeah.
agree. It's.
I think we got a good shot at that. The well, we're waiting for the final water test. They did the 7-day pump test, which went great. Once we get the water test, we will send that to Deep, and then Sarah Ramsbottom and her committee should be able to green light the next step, which is putting an RFP out there for the well house and whatnot. So we need to confirm the funding once this testing is done and we get that to her. So
Is
that
there
is
a reason we haven't put out the RFP yet?
we have to get the funding approved because it's taken so long. The funds that we're using for this have to be reapproved right now. So they're waiting for the water results in the pump test. The pump test was great. We're waiting for the water quality test. So
The water quality test would help us finalize the package we're gonna need in there for
that's
filtration
exactly
and
right. But
sanitization.
because it's the revolving funds that we're using, we have to acquiesce to what they're looking for. So because it took a long time, they have to reapprove that. So we should be fine, but we need to go through that step right now. And that's why it hasn't gone up yet. Traffic, again, I talked about it earlier. We're looking to mitigate wherever possible. We approved it on our last budget vote, a couple camera locations, so license plate readers for the town, so they can also make it safer in case anyone's driving through town that we have to locate. Those locations have been picked by the police. I believe they have 4 locations in town at major intersections. So that project should go forward. Again, we've already approved that, but they're not speeding tickets, they're licensed readers. So that they'll help with safety in town and be able to identify who might be going through town that should not be going through town. So that is up for running. Pete Wilsey, our previous building official, retired as of a week or so ago. So we are now looking actively for another building officer right now. I have a dozen applications that have come through. When Pete was hired 3.5 years ago, in the middle of the pandemic. There was very few people out there looking for the job. Pete did a wonderful job on board. I wish him the best of luck. He's still staying with the fire department, but there are a great number of qualified building officials now available. So we'll get that committee set, and we'll start interviewing next week on that. So that is happening there. Reminder, Halloween on Main Street this Friday, 4:30 to 6:30. A lot of businesses participating. It's like a conveyor of kids walking around and going through. I'll be in downtown. I think many of you will as well. But that will be a big thing. And so far the weather looks good. So someone asked about chip sealing the other day. And the town has a 5 to 7 year plan where they try to rotate through the streets in town, and everything gets hit at least once every 5 to 7 years. That's the plan. I know there's some really big feelings about chip sealing in terms of how it's done. It is the most affordable way that the town can add a half inch to a road and maintain it as much as possible. But paving obviously is better, but much more expensive. So one of the things the board may want to look at the next board is there a better way to do that? I welcome any input for the next board in terms of how we can do that going forward. I'll just leave it at that. So we'll leave that discussion with the next board, but it is worth looking at and reviewing every now and then. Blue Earth was also a group that we talked about letting go. It's the organic stuff that costs us 2 or 3 times more than the existing for disposal. I'm going to end that program officially with them at the end of this year. And Aaron Livensparger for Firing Farm has agreed to kind of head up and help with that. So details will follow. I'll get her to one of the meetings coming up soon. But it's a small amount, but we do want to keep that in town. And there's multiple farms that are interested in being part of that. So I'm glad the town is willing to pick that up. And I give kudos to Aaron for being willing to step up and assist with that. So thank you, Aaron and Firing Farm. Contract negotiations are coming up soon. There's 3 contracts I believe we need to negotiate coming up. So that will be taking a great deal of time over the next 2 or 3 months. And I actually have Butler Lane as one of my last topics tonight, but you've already started the conversation. So I did want to invite Bob Shea to come here tonight. He is on vacation right now, someplace in Europe, enjoying himself. So in one of the meetings coming up, probably, it may not be the next BOS meeting, but the next one after that, I do want to continue that conversation. So I know, so that's all I have. Are we almost ready for follow-ups? School facilities report we've talked about, ethics ordinance, I'm going to wait until the next board. And then the town charter, we're gonna wait for the next board as well on that. So we talked about that already, but we'll kick that to the next board. I'm down to number 13, adjourn.
I'll make a
meeting.
motion, we adjourn.
Who's gonna second?
That.
That was the quickest. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No, we're going fast.